So, when you know your truth and you can see things clearly, you can make a clear decision. And people are well aware of this, right? That's why they want to keep you blind. That's why they want to keep you deaf. That's why they want to keep you dumb by telling you lies, by manipulating you. And yet, our only job is to tell ourselves truth. But we have to be careful because oftentimes we do get tricked and trapped into other people's play, other people's dreams or desires that sound like they match up with ours. I mean, they definitely got a good sales pitch going on. It sounds like what I said I wanted or this or that. And so we have to always be honest with ourselves. We have to be even brutally honest, even if we don't like what we're doing or why we're doing it. We have to be for our own sake, because people are aware of these dynamics. So for instance, let's just use something silly like you fight for something. That's your shtick. You believe in something and you fight for that, and so you're announcing what you believe is right. So you want to impose your rightness on others. So you're going to fight for that right for you and others. And so somebody knows this about you. So they come along and tell you an injustice that's going on in their life based on that moral standard of yours. And you're like, oh, let me help you, right? And you more or less put your nose where it doesn't belong because you like to feel more right about your conviction. And you now get to prove your ego right and prove it to others. And so you get tricked, trapped, fall into, or you called it in because your ego wanted to solidify your belief even more. Remember, there's no victims here, but most people can't grasp that latter part. So fine, you get, quote, tricked into, and soon enough you find out that's not what that fight is about at all, because it very rarely is. You were just a pawn in somebody else's game, but you played party to it because it also served you. You could feel like the hero, the martyr, the good guy, the savior, whatever you want to call it. You too were getting something. And so you didn't so much get tricked into it as much as you left your true alignment. You left your truth to chase your ego, to confirm your ego, right? To pump that up instead, right? Because if you were in your heart, you would realize everybody's life is their life. You don't need to get involved. And yet we do. And this is how we get pulled into other people's dreams or other people's dramas. Like, all the stuff that goes on in the world, if you knew the real truth behind it, you'd shut the fuck up, right? We wouldn't say a goddamn thing about any of it because we don't give a fuck. It's somebody else's problem with somebody else's bullshit. But we're all weighing in and picking sides and choosing sides based on the bullshit we're fed and the lies we're told to play on our heartstrings, to play on not our heartstrings, our ego, our identity, what we want to believe about ourselves. We want to believe we're the good guys. We're the upstanding citizens. We're the moral compass. We're the do-gooders or whatever bullshit rhetoric. That's what is presented to you to feed into your ego, to catch you, get you, pull you into somebody else's dream, somebody else's bullshit. So if you don't know your dream, or you don't have a dream, or you don't have a life that you love, that you're cultivating, you get pulled into all this shit, right? And it usually is those of us who, have had some form of trauma. We're like the easiest to bat around like a bunch of mice because we're in that trauma wound, right? We haven't healed. This is why it's so important to heal yourself so you're not a pawn anymore. But until you do, you don't even recognize that you're seeking outside yourself. That's why you're not a victim. You're seeking belonging. You're seeking validation. You're seeking approval. You're seeking hero-dom, martyrdom, savior, You're seeking these identities. And so when an opportunity presents itself that could fulfill that ego's need, your ego will jump at it. Even though if your heart got to weigh in, your heart would say, I don't give a fuck about that. What do we want to do? I want to have some fun. Can we live our life? Can we live and experience the beauty of this earth? Can we go see things? Can we go do things? Like, why are we getting roped into somebody else's problem and fighting their battle? That's their battle. That's not my battle. I don't care about that. If they have to work that out, let them work that out. Oh, they were showing this the other day too. This happens in groups. This happens in families. This happens all over the place where two people have a problem, right? But they can't seem to resolve it. So they start to talk bad about the other to the other people in that group or in that program or in that family or in that friend group or community, whatever it is. And so ill seeds start to get planted because the two people in question can't fucking figure it out. So what ends up happening when those ill seeds start spreading is people do start to feed their ego by taking sides. And it can rip families apart. It can rip communities apart. It can rip friend groups apart because the two people in question couldn't sit the fuck down and figure it out. Right? So then we end up harming so many others in our wake because the two can't figure it out. And that happens sometimes. But when they can't figure it out, but then they turn around and tell everybody it's their fault, they blame the other. One, they're handing away their power, but they're also planting all these ill seeds, and then they're gaining sympathy. They're becoming the victim. They want everybody on their team, their side, to prop them up, to make them feel better about the decision they made because they couldn't step up and handle the scenario or squash it and then never talk about it again or whatever needs to be done. They roped other people into their play. Right? And so drug them off their own path to get onto your path, to pump up your ego. Right? And we have to be careful of these dynamics. But again, I think it's probably more of a message for those of us who have spent a large portion of our life either trying to heal or not healing, in freeze, fight, fawn, like not being able to get out of our own way, continually going into the same cycles, the same loops, and can't figure out why. But the more we do it, the more familiar it gets. And the more familiar it gets, the more challenging and difficult it is to see the pattern we're in, the dynamic we're in, because that blind spot becomes smaller or darker or larger, or however you want to visualize it. It is becoming increasingly challenging for you to see it because you have now become comfortable with it, right? So it's no longer the obvious pain. It is now a familiar pattern that you have to break. And it's like you feel like you've already been dysregulated and upset and confused for so long to have to keep, quote, working or fighting or figuring out seems exhausting. And that's why you become a pawn, because most people play on that, are aware of that, understand that dynamic, and they're like, great, let me rope you over here. You want to feel like you belong? Here, come fight my battles for me. You want to this or that? Fine, come over here and I'll make you feel this way or that way. So you're seeking outside yourself. So you're not a victim. You chose that just as much because it filled that need for you. If you learn to fill your own needs and take back your power and stop handing it over to anybody, which requires work, it requires effort, it requires time, it requires understanding, it requires unraveling things. It requires you telling yourself the truth, swallowing the medicine and taking accountability for what you continued to call in, right? It's like sometimes there's a quote in the Bible, something like, it was like there was some crazy person and the disciples said, how come we couldn't fix it? Was it the sin of his father? And I think the response was something like, it's not because of his father. It wasn't because he was born with it. It wasn't any of that. Because I think sometimes what happens is it's again meant for us to propel into what we want even more. It's like it's supposed to be an obvious a mismatch, right? It's supposed to be this obvious contrast so that we're like, oh, obviously that's the other thing we want. But we get so familiar with the thing that we don't want that we lose sight of that contrast or confusion or delusion. We end up fighting the thing we don't want. So what we resist persists and we can't get out of our own way. I could go on and on, but It's like, ask yourself, is this your truth? Is this really how you want to be living your life? Or are you fighting somebody else's battle? Are you in somebody else's play? Are you playing party or a pawn in somebody else's game, a role in somebody else's story to fulfill their needs, their ego, prop up their desires? Or are you living your life by choice? You're choosing to do the things you're doing, right? And maybe it is, I mean, I can't imagine this, but maybe it is. Like, maybe there are people who are like, oh, I'm aware. Like, there are some people that know they need to belong, they need to do this, they need to do that, and they're happy to give away their power and play the victim, but they're aware they're playing the victim, and it's almost like they're happy doing it because, again, it's like they're too exhausted to make the change, or they're too whatever. So they're choosing to hand over their life to that other person. They're choosing to play a side piece, a pawn, a secondhand character in somebody else's life. It's a conscious choice. So, I think if you're honest with yourself and you are at peace within one's soul with whatever you decide, I think that's fine. I think oftentimes people get, quote, tricked or roped into things by their own ego, and they don't realize their ego is tossing them all around and running their show until they can learn to put their ego in check and they take charge of their life and their dreams and their desires and go after them. And they sit their ego down. Their ego is to fuel them, to give them rocket fuel, not to direct them and lead them, because they'll lead them right off a cliff and they won't even know it. But this is also why, you have to heal. You have to heal to know your truth. If you're not healed, you're operating from your wound and you don't even know it. Thanks so much for tuning in and listening. You can now purchase an audio journey with me using the link below.